I need you to listen closely because what I'm about to share isn't symbolic, it's not poetic, and it's not something I learned in church. I learned this the hard way while I was deep inside the occult. We didn't fear walls. We didn't fear locks. We didn't fear alarms. We feared doors that had been sealed spiritually. Because when a door is sealed the right way, darkness doesn't knock. It doesn't linger. It doesn't wait for an opportunity. It loses access completely. Most people think spiritual attacks come randomly. They don't. They come through permission. And permission almost always enters through what we called open doors. Some doors are obvious: sin, trauma, unforgiveness. But others are subtle: night routines, spoken words, what you allow at the threshold of your home, what you ignore before sleep. I remember standing in a room at 2 in the morning, assigned to monitor a household that was constantly under attack. Nightmares, sudden fear, heavy sleep paralysis, financial loss. We couldn't cross the doorway, not because the family was perfect, not because they were sinless, but because someone in that house had learned how to secure their door before nightfall. Tonight's message isn't about superstition, it's about authority. If darkness has been lingering around your sleep, your peace, your home, or your family, there is a reason. And more importantly, there is a way to shut it down tonight. In the occult, we understood something most believers never get taught. Nighttime doesn't make you weak, but it makes permissions louder. Your guard is lower. Your mind is quieter. Your spirit is more exposed. That's why so many attacks happen between midnight and dawn. That's why fear shows up when the lights go off. That's why thoughts you never have during the day suddenly feel overwhelming at night. Darkness looks for moments when authority is unattended, not removed, just unattended. When you go to sleep without intentionally securing your space, you're not inviting evil, but you're also not resisting it. And in spiritual law, neutrality is not protection. We were trained to listen for open environments, homes where prayer was rushed, homes where doors were never acknowledged spiritually, homes where people assumed God would automatically protect what they never formally placed under his authority. That's the uncomfortable truth. God honors authority structures. He doesn't force. His covering over places you've never submitted. This is why some people love God deeply, but still experience nightly disturbances. The issue isn't faith, it's access. In spiritual warfare, doors are legal thresholds. That's why blood was placed on doorposts in Egypt. That's why covenants were sealed at gates. That's why scripture constantly references entrances, watchmen, and gates. When a door is unsecured, it doesn't mean something will attack, but it means something can. Darkness respects structure. It looks for unclaimed territory. When you don't define a boundary, something else eventually will. I've seen homes where one sentence spoken at the door changed everything. I've watched assignments get cancelled instantly because a homeowner exercised authority they didn't even know they had. The door represents jurisdiction. Who governs this space? Who is invited? Who is refused? If that question is unanswered, darkness doesn't rush in and waits. Here's the mistake. People pray generally but never specifically. They say, God protect me, but never say, I claim this space. They pray emotionally, not legally. And emotions don't close doors, authority does. Before sleep, many people scroll, argue, overthink, relive trauma, or fall asleep mentally open. That doesn't mean you're sinful. It means you're unguarded. And unguarded doesn't invite attack, but it allows access. Darkness doesn't need chaos. It needs silence without authority. Let me tell you something most believers don't realize. Darkness knows when a door is sealed. There's resistance, confusion, interruption. Assignments stall, thoughts lose momentum. Fear can't anchor. We used to mark houses as restricted, accessible, or closed. Closed didn't mean perfect. Closed meant covered, claimed, governed. And the fastest way a house moved from accessible to closed wasn't long prayers. It was intentional ones. Securing your door doesn't require oil, salt, objects, or rituals. It requires alignment and authority. Tonight, before sleep, acknowledge your door, physically or verbally. Stand in agreement with God's authority, not fear. Speak ownership. Speak covering. Speak refusal. Darkness cannot override a declared boundary that's aligned with divine authority. It can only exploit silence. When a door is secured properly, peace isn't forced, it returns naturally. Sleep deepens, dreams shift, the heaviness lifts, not because darkness is destroyed, but because access is revoked. That's what most people misunderstand. You don't need to fight what no longer has permission. Here's the test. After tonight, distractions may increase. Not attacks, distractions. The enemy tries to establish access through neglect, through forgetfulness, through convincing you it didn't matter. Consistency isn't fear, it's stewardship. If this message stirred something in you, that's not fear, that's awareness. Fear makes you anxious. Authority makes you calm. You were never meant to sleep exposed. You were meant to rest under covering. I didn't leave the occult to scare believers. I left to tell the truth. Darkness isn't as powerful as people think, but it is strategic. And tonight, strategy loses. Secure your door. Not tomorrow, not someday. Tonight. When you do, darkness doesn't argue. It doesn't negotiate. It loses access. And once access is gone, peace isn't a struggle, it's your default. Now listen carefully, because this is where many people misunderstand the process. When you secure your door and claim spiritual authority, darkness doesn't usually disappear with noise. It leaves quietly. There's no drama, no thunder, no visible sign, but you'll feel the difference. The first thing that changes is your atmosphere. The room feels lighter. Your breathing slows down. Your mind stops racing for no reason. That sudden heaviness you couldn't explain before sleep simply isn't there anymore. That's not imagination. That's access being revoked. The second thing that changes is your dreams. When a door is open, dreams are chaotic, draining, confusing, or fearful. Once authority is established, dreams either become peaceful or they stop completely for a while. Darkness loses the ability to communicate through your subconscious when the legal door is shut. The third change is subtle but powerful. Your confidence returns, not arrogance, not pride. Just a quiet knowing that you are not vulnerable, that you are not exposed, that you are not being watched anymore. In the occult, this was the clearest sign that a house had moved from accessible to closed. And here's the most important part: darkness remembers closed doors. Once a place is consistently governed, it is rarely targeted again. Not because attacks don't exist, but because resistance is too costly. Darkness looks for easy access, not authority. So if tonight you secure your door with intention, alignment, and confidence, not fear, you're not just protecting one night of sleep. You're setting a standard. You're establishing a boundary. You're declaring that your home, your rest, and your peace are no longer negotiable. And once the declaration is made, darkness doesn't argue, it withdraws.